In part 2 of our coding, ICD-10 coding for refraction and non-medical conditions, a question that comes up a lot is, what is GEMS? GEMS is called the General Equivalence Mapping System. And it's a tool that you can use to convert data from ICD-9 to ICD-10 and vice versa. You can download the files off this link here on the screen. You can go to the Medicare website. And I have some examples of what a simple GEMS crosswalk will look. Now, while many ICD-10 codes are exact one-to-one crosswalks, there are exceptions. And these exceptions will include acronyms, different terms for the same disease, and codes that have no ICD-10 crosswalk. Now, this is what's going to make the ICD-10 transition challenging. Learning the basics, which will take several hours, like we're doing today, and then things like glaucoma and diabetes, cataract codes, ARMD, dry eye syndrome, conditions of retinal conditions, etc. Many of those are straightforward, but within all the diseases of the eye, there are numerous exceptions, and the exceptions are what you really need to know. So generally, a simple GEMS conversion will be inadequate and will omit many required codes. So on our screen, you can see the ICD-9 codes, and this is an actual list of the top 22 codes from a clinic. And you'll see we have our refraction codes. Regular astigmatism is number 1, myopia, presbyopia, and hypermetropia. Then after that, you'll see we have some of our top ICD-9 codes for disease conditions. And this rounds out the codes here on the second page with things like pure film. And again, all of these are covered in depth in our ICD-10 training. Now notice here on our crosswalk, we have the codes now begin with an H, and the first codes here are H52. And H52 codes, those are refraction codes. And then after, you'll notice the codes change. And again, we have different codes for different conditions here. We have glaucoma, and again, note here that we have actual stage codes are built into the codes in glaucoma, but we're not going to go into detail on that today. But again, here's what we call a straight one-to-one crosswalk. Another thing, if you look on our screen, you can see that a lot of these will default to either a bilateral code or an unspecified code. It will either be a 3 or a 9. That's what we call the laterality. And again, that unspecified I code, of course, make sure that your staff understands that if you ever did look it up on the internet, or if you're using an EMR or your practice management system, and it only crosswalks to the unspecified code, that is inherently inaccurate. You need to make sure that they will substitute either the right eye, left eye, or bilateral eyes appropriately. So let's not have that problem happen, because that's going to be leading to inaccurate coding. So discussing our refraction disorders, understand that these are not medical diagnoses. In addition, they should primarily be used with CPT code 92015. Now, while some medical insurance carriers and most vision plans will accept linking of a refraction diagnosis to a medical diagnosis, you really should always link the Z01 routine vision exam code to the medical diagnoses like 920XX or the 992, the E&M office visits, when there's no medical diagnosis. So again, what I recommend is linking refraction codes to 92015, and then you link the Z code to the office visits or a medical diagnosis. But we'll discuss some other codes in this presentation, so that's further clarified. Medicare never pays on 92015. They don't even have it in their fee schedule. However, some medical insurance carriers will pay when you link a medical diagnosis code to 92015 their refraction service. So a lot of carriers, a lot of providers are not aware of this, even though they've documented and reported it. They really weren't aware that because it's a medical diagnosis, a medical carrier will pay on a refraction CPT code, where normally they would deny it if it's linked to a refraction diagnosis code. So it's very important to be clear which is which. Now, when linking to an office visit, again, use the Z01 code in ICD-10. First code is hyperopia, also known as hypermetropia or farsightedness. The patient can see in the distance, and the eyeball is generally too short. And you can see our 4 codes on the screen. Note that this is an exception to the earlier rule. The unspecified code ends in a 0, but then the right eye is a 1, left eye is a 2, and bilateral is a 3. Now, one decision that every clinic needs to make globally is, do you omit the unspecified eye codes from reporting, from your fee ticket, from any cheat sheet, maybe even your computer system if possible? Now, I know that the American Academy of Ophthalmology recommends not using them at all, and they recommend omitting them. So that's a question. Would there be a situation where you simply would not know which eye? That's a decision you need to make. But right now, I would recommend omitting these codes because you're not going to have much space anyway. If you're trying to put together like the best I think we would hope for is a 2-page, say, ICD-10 cheat sheet. That would be 2 pages, 3 columns with approximately 150 or more codes per page. And if you omit the unspecified codes, then this can really, really help. On the bottom, we have a code called aniseikonia, and this is simply normal refractive status. It's normal vision. So if you see that, there's not a specific code for normal vision. Next code is myopia, or nearsightedness. Patient can see close up, and the eyeball is generally too long. This also is an exception with the 0 as the unspecified eye, and it has laterality. The next code is presbyopia, which is the inability to see close up. Most people that use reading glasses and are over 40 will have presbyopia. This code does not have laterality, so it's simply H52.4, and that's it. Now, other refractive conditions are anisometropia, which is a condition in which the 2 eyes have unequal refractive power. Gross anisometropia is the difference of more than 2 diopters between the eyes. Another code is aniseikonia, which is a defect of binocular vision in which the 2 retinal images of an object differ in perceived size. These are both refraction codes beginning with H52. Neither code has laterality. So again, you report these with just 1 code each. Astigmatism, very, very popular. There are 2 types, and then there is a code for unspecified astigmatism, which on the screen I have KOD, which means kiss of death, means you may be denied if you use too many unspecified codes, and that's going to be carrier specific. I recommend reporting either regular astigmatism, where the principal meridians are perpendicular, or irregular astigmatism, where the principal meridians are not perpendicular. Other concepts in astigmatism are what we call with the rule astigmatism, where the vertical meridian is steepest. The eye is a football, think of it as lying on its side, and this is more common with children. And against the rule astigmatism, where the horizontal meridian is steepest, and it's like a football standing on its end, and this is more common with adults. We'll stop here with part 2 and continue with part 3 in the next series of slides.